Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier tripping over rocks on Daymar, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, last episode we talked about the idea of persistent money and how that is apparently our reality, though asterisk, big disclaimer, may not in fact be our reality. Be cautious with your grinding. Be reasonable. But there was another thing that got dropped in that, and Chris Roberts talked about building your own little homestead. Now, there's a pirate side to this, and there's a generalist side to this. And I'm going to get the generalist side out of the way first, because I think it's something that applies to all players. One of the things about Star Citizen, and that's kind of why I'm reusing this footage, I think, from last Friday, because it was really good footage too, and all the images kind of covered it up. But one of the things that they talked about was setting up your own homestead, of course. And one of the great things about Star Citizen, sorry, I'm kind of getting a little jumbled up here, is that Star Citizen, in just the basic implementation of the world that we have now, is already a much vaster play field than any MMO that we've had before. I mean, the size of areas that you traverse in Final Fantasy, in World of Warcraft, in just about anything, could all just entirely be squeezed down and fit on Daymar in a little splotch that you would barely see from space. I mean, that's how big this world is. And in a way, just through this basic design, Star Citizen and these vast vistas that it creates solves one of the biggest problems that a lot of these MMOs have, which is player housing and where to put it. Because certainly, using my closest example, World of Warcraft, there's nowhere to put player housing. Players have been demanding it for years, and the only time they kind of implemented it, it was a game-killing disaster. And that, we could get into that, but that's a whole video unto itself, and that's not what this channel is about. Instead, I can just say, you can take it from me, but you may know what I'm referring to. The garrison system did not work. Final Fantasy XIV apparently has a fairly decent system, but once again, that housing is instanced. It's these little city blocks that you can travel to, apparently, where people park their homes, but they don't really exist in the world, right? Because with the thousands and thousands of players existing in that same environment, they would quickly fill up the city. There isn't even enough housing in a town like Orgrimmar and WoW to account for maybe 1% of the players horde side on a server. There's just no room, right? And that's one of the biggest problems with a lot of these old MMOs. Now, Star Citizen, of course, has got space to spare. In fact, one of the things that Chris Roberts brought up was the fact, that players would populate that world with content by creating their own industries, by creating their own little way stations on planets and moons and possibly asteroids. Hopefully, we'll get to that in a minute. And it is very much true, and it echoes a statement that I think I made a year ago in one of my videos when I talked about player housing. You guys can go back and try and find it. I'm not sure. I make a lot of them. But I talked about the fact that if you kind of give players the canvas, they'll fill it for you. And that is probably one of the things that I'm most excited to see. Along with that, I kind of, when he was talking about that, obviously he's not talking about 3.9. And I don't think that he's talking about 4.0 either, but potentially this is something that we may see within the 4 series of patches. You remember that along with the Pioneer came the land claims. Now, we haven't seen land claims since, but people bought land claims so they could plunk down a little homestead somewhere on the surface of some of these planets. Now, I have some thoughts on that, but one of the things that that kind of tweaked my antennas, and I'm going to make a bit of a Minion Soldier prediction here, is that I kind of think that sooner rather than later, one of the concept ships, I don't think flight ready concepts, but one of the concept ships that we are going to see potentially in the next year is going to be a medium-sized base building ship that kind of takes prefabs and drops them at various locations. I think we're going to see something like that, because the Pioneer is obviously beyond the horizon, and it is going to be a big project to bring that thing to life. But I think that we are going to see a medium-sized ship that can drop prefabs that you buy from various stations and just plunk them down at a location. Whereas the Pioneer builds everything itself, this you'll have to go and purchase something that's already built and then drop it at that place. That's something I think we're going to see in the next year, and I think that with persistence, this is something that they're going to be pushing for. Base building has always been something that I've very much enjoyed. One of the things that, the Scum org that I'm a member of, one of the things that we are kind of hilarious degenerates for is base building survival games with open world PvP. Anytime a new one comes out, we almost universally buy it. Scum, Conan Exiles, Ark, Dark and Light. I'm trying to think of the other one, but Last Oasis. A game that, if you haven't heard, had a bit of a rough start, but has a lot of promise. Reminds me of something. But anyways, back on topic. So base building in, survival games is, something that I enjoy a hell of a lot. And I love to think about, how do you place things? How do you make things difficult and, difficult for people to attack, not difficult for yourself, and that sort of thing. And how do you put things together so that they have a flow and a logical place to store things, and little, storage places, everything, make sure everything is nice and neatly labeled, and then kind of mess around with some of it from time to time to make the more OCD members of your org flip out just a little. Things like that. But I'm really excited to see what Star Citizen's going to do in this area, because this is really, they've kind of painted themselves a perfect canvas in which to build on. And I mean, even if we were to just gloss over the easy stuff, the stuff that we know, it's pretty damned exciting. I mean, you think about one of the things they talked about recently was you're now mining for this new quantum fuel, Quantanium. It's a fantastic name, by the way. And it's unstable. That's something that sounds familiar too. So when you're transporting it, you have to be yeah, that does sound very familiar. I think I saw that in a movie once. Anyways, it's unstable, so you got to get it to a place where you refine it. Well, what if some player is smart enough to build a really good refinery somewhere near where you mine a lot of Quantanium? So players can stay there, refine it, they pay a little tax, owner of the refinery takes a little tithe, if you will, and then they can stay there and keep mining and keep making money rather than going back and forth. It's things like this that open up these really great business opportunities for players, both criminal and non-criminal. And I think that I'm very excited to see what Star Citizen does in this department. One of my biggest resentments of World of Warcraft is the fact that they have never really figured out a way to even try to do a decent stab at player housing. I mean, we could get into that, but once again, that would be a whole video. But I really think that this opens up so many cool possibilities. And I think that, interestingly enough, the one thing, the land claims and the whole legitimate side of things is very exciting. But on the illegal side of things, I think it opens up some interesting doors as well. Now, I'm sure from a lot of my recent videos where I've talked about, various different subjects, but I'm usually kind of smuggling goods to the orphanage out there on Lyria, you may note that the actual orphanage, the actual lab that seems to produce these drugs, which is kind of a small scale lab, isn't really that big. In fact, it's just a little bit bigger than a cutlass, realistically. So there's a lot of interesting possibilities as to where you can put a thing like this. Sure, you can tuck these things away on various moons, Daymar, Cellin, wherever. There's plenty of space to hide a little something like this, but technically, if you're getting the chemicals to produce the goods, who says that you even really have to put it on a moon? There are many interesting celestial objects hidden in the far off corners of the Stanton system that clearly have enough space on them to at least mount one of these drug labs onto it. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a land claim. It would be something illegal, something kind of squatterish, something that would provide no legal protections, but then again, no legal oversight as well. A place where miscreants could congregate or store a small-scale money-generating enterprise that may require them to go out and purchase certain chemicals from certain suppliers within the system and then maybe hire an NPC to manage this enterprise while they're offline, so they're constantly creating things. And yeah, of course, maybe the market can only absorb so much product from a seller at a time, but it would serve as kind of like a healthy little side income that potentially could be expanded up to Jumptown size later on down the road when they've made enough money. And you might have to go and pick a different asteroid, but beyond just the business opportunity, as an opportunity for housing, I think asteroids hold a lot of potential, and with that, the potential to maybe save a little creative effort and a little money by revisiting the asteroid hangar that we have had for years. The basic asteroid hangar with the single landing point it'll accommodate the basic ships that we already have. And of course, there was a larger landing area that could maybe accommodate up to a constellation within that. But I guess that would depend on the size of the asteroid that you build it into. But I think that there's a lot of possibilities to kind of create these kind of like illicit and unprotected squatter bases inside of asteroids that players can use as a form of personal housing. At a time, a while ago, we were decorating these, we were personalizing them. There were decorations that you could get, things like that, to make it your own space. And I think that there was potential in that, had it been connected to the Star Citizen universe in a meaningful way. The old hangars could have really kind of carried forward into Star Citizen with maybe a minimum amount of modification. I don't know what's involved in the back end, so I'm not going to say, they can totally do this in 5 minutes. Obviously, it would take more effort than that, but there's some really cool stuff there that we really, frankly, we just don't use anymore. It's all become dead content. And I'd like to kind of see at least the asteroid base brought back, and the other ones brought back in suitable landing locations where they would thematically fit with that location, and allow players to kind of experiment with housing and homesteads in that way as well. I mean, certainly there's enough space on ArcCorp for enough of the fancy industrial landings, landing sites and hangars. I don't know. Maybe it's worth a look. I would love to see CIG kind of make use of all this territory. Now, obviously, we're talking about something way beyond the horizon right now. And, it's an offhand comment by Chris Roberts. So it does have to be taken with a huge grain of salt. Because, what they say this quarter could be erased and off the roadmap the next quarter, depending on the ever-shifting sands of game development and its requirements. But if they do go this route, these are just some of the ideas, some of the things that I would like to see materialize to go along with it. And I think the medium base builder ship, I think that's kind of a lock. I think that is definitely something, though, that we are going to see pop into the game, either, well, probably more likely as a concept, but possibly even as a flight-ready concept to go along with this homesteading idea, if they do carry it through to fruition. This, I think, along with persistence, is possibly one of the biggest developments that we can look forward to. And I'm very, very interested in seeing CIG talk about this much more in depth than, the few offhand comments that Chris Roberts made during Pillar Talk. But I'll definitely be excited to listen. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.